First Circuit Court of Appeals, Coangut County, State of Iowa, is now in session. The Honorable Agnes Lynn presiding. Spectators will please be seated.
Today we hear a class action suit. The inhabitants of Dachau, Buchenwald, Auschwitz, My Lai, and the citizens of Hiroshima, Dresden, Nagasaki, and Phnom Penh, and all other victims of cruelty and injustice, including the plaintiffs in today's hearing. And they are Mr. Gary Schneider, Dr. Sally Carlin, and Mr. Donald Quinlan, versus... Will the defendant please rise and identify himself?
I'm called by many names, Your Honor. Allah, Brahman, Yahweh, Elohim, Lord, the Great Spirit.
May we call you God for short?
That will be fine.
Order. You may be seated while I read the charges. The above-named defendant, God, is charged with cruel and inhuman behavior, with hypocrisy and deceit, with preaching love while practicing hate, with promulgating an ideal of justice while flagrantly violating it at every turn, with claiming to be the friend and benefactor of humanity while consistently making war upon it, and sadistically taking pleasure in the pain and suffering of said humanity. How does the defendant plead?
My client pleads not guilty, Your Honor.
Order. 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 The issues before this court are very serious ones, and I'm sure that the jury will give it its full and undivided attention. Conviction, as you know, carries with it the death penalty. Prosecution may proceed.
I agree with Your Honor. This is a matter of great importance. Put simply, the issue is this. Why does a God who says he is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving create a world in which good people, through no fault of their own, are forced to endure intolerable pain and suffering? To delve into this question requires great intelligence. To face its answer requires even greater courage. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected because this court is convinced that you have both. Now, as my first witness for the prosecution, I would like to call to the stand Mr. Gary Schneider.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Gary, would you classify yourself as a happy or an unhappy person?
I'm afraid I don't win any prizes for happiness.
What would you say is the cause of your unhappiness?
When my wife got sick 16 years ago.
How sick was she?
Very sick. It was cancer. It took 15 months for it to kill her.
What were those 15 months like?
They were terrible. The pain was excruciating.
And what did you do?
What could I do? Me and the kids, we tried to make her as comfortable as possible. Let her know how much we loved her. And we prayed. We prayed up a storm. We asked God if he could show us some mercy to let us have her a little longer. I guess he was too busy to bother.
How did the kids take it?
It's tough. But they're great kids, and we stuck together and bowled our way through it.
How are they doing now?
Fine. I'm so proud of them.
Why then do you say that you're unhappy? Is it because you lost your wife and you had to raise the kids without her?
It's not that I lost her. It's the reason I lost her. That's what bothers me.
Would you mind explaining that?
Well, we lived in Fayetteville, 2 miles from the chemical plant. 20 years ago, they didn't know what they know today. They had to get rid of the waste. So what did? They dumped it in the ground and contaminated our water supply. I knew there was a mistake. Hell, anybody can make a mistake. What bothers me is the thinking behind the mistake. Now, they knew there was a problem, but they decided it would be cheaper to compensate the relatives instead of taking the necessary precautions. I mean, can you imagine? I lost my wife. My children lost their mother because it was cheaper to dump the stuff.
How do you feel about those responsible?
I hated them until I met them, and now I just feel sorry for them. Anybody that puts money before people is just a poor excuse for a human being.
How do you feel about the defendant in today's court?
Who, him? Well, I try not to think about him.
Why is that?
Just gets me upset. I get mad. He's the one that made those stupid jackasses, so he's responsible for what they do. And I blame him with every ounce of energy I got.
Thank you, Gary. Your witness, Mr. Braddock.
Well, Mr. Schneider, would you consider yourself a good father?
I try to be.
Well, as your kids were growing up, did you ever have any trouble with them?
Nothing to speak of.
Nothing at all?
Well, Angela was running with a pretty fast crowd, staying out late at night. She was going with this guy that was not very good. Bad news.
So what did you do?
Well, I told her how I felt. I told her that she had to start using her head.
But did you keep her home at night or make her come home right after school?
What good would that have done?
So you allowed her to make mistakes?
Yes.
Was that difficult?
Yes, very.
Why did you do it?
Because I'm her father. I'm not a policeman. I love her. I had to give her space.
Did it work?
Sure did. She learned from her mistakes. I knew she would. Now she makes her own decisions. Good ones.
And allowing her space was necessary for that?
I think so.
Well, Mr. Schneider, I'd like to compliment you. I think you are a good father, a loving one. Your children have matured into responsible human beings. Isn't it possible, Mr. Schneider, that out of this awful tragedy of your wife's death came a very great good?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean that from it, you and your children seem to have learned to forget about yourselves, to really care for one another. And isn't it conceivable, Mr. Schneider, just conceivable, that the defendant in this trial had something to do with that?
Bull! Now, if we grew, it's because we worked at it, and he had nothing to do with it. The bottom line is I was deprived of my wife, and my children was deprived of their mother, and he could have prevented it, and he did nothing! Nothing!
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. No further questions.
Order! You're excused. Miss Durbin, you can call your next witness.
I'd like to call Dr. Sally Carlin to the stand, please. Dr. Carlin, would you mind telling the court what you do for a living?
I'm a physician. I've worked for the United Nations Health Organization on and off now for about 14 years.
In what countries?
Biafra, Niger, Somalia, Kenya, India, wherever things are bad and people are starving. I've just come back from Cambodia.
Tell me, are we making any progress? Are things getting any better in the third world?
No. In much of the third world, 20% of our children die before their first birthday. Another 20% before their sixth. The cause? Malnutrition. It's exasperating. It's depressing and very unnecessary.
What do you mean?
Well, just what I said. There's plenty of food in the world, enough for everybody. The problem is those that have more than they need are unwilling to share with those that have less than they need.
Well, then, is this a first world or a third world problem?
It's both. The third world is filled with corrupt politicians and inefficient managers who feather their own nests while the poor starve. But they are kept in power by the present world economic system, which discriminates against the third world and enables the rich and powerful nations to take advantage of the poor ones. Compounding all this is the Soviet-American arms race, which bleeds everyone dry and doesn't increase anyone's security one iota.
How do you feel about the communists?
Barbaric. They sacrifice people for power, but we Americans were just as bad. We sacrifice people for our affluent lifestyles, and the people we sacrifice, the victims, in both cases, are the emaciated children of the third world.
How do you feel about the defendant in today's trial?
I don't feel anything about him. I'm not religious. I never have been.
But you do believe he exists?
If you say so.
Look, he's sitting right over there.
I see a man. I don't see God, who he is, and what he does is of little consequence to me, except when the rich and comfortable use him to prop up their shaky egos to justify what they do.
Would you mind explaining that?
Oh, it's obvious. You know them. I know them. The so-called religious people. Well, they feel so good about themselves because they go to church and they say their prayers. Smug, complacent, and very well fed.
They bother you?
Oh, they're hypocrites. They talk about God and forget about people. In a world full of poverty, injustice, and racism, they just sit on their hands. It makes me want to vomit.
Thank you, Dr. Carlin. Your witness, counselor.
Dr. Carlin, you're a very dedicated, unselfish person. You're to be commended. Would you mind a personal question?
No.
Why do you do it?
I've often asked myself that same question.
And?
Well, my brother says I'm a masochist, and my sister claims that without a husband and children of my own, it's my way of feeling needed.
Well, what does Sally say?
Well, Sally, she doesn't know.
Do you ever get discouraged?
Yes. Yeah. The problems are so immense, you see. And what we do seems so insignificant. We band-aid.
Dr. Carlin, why did you return from Cambodia?
Consultations. Well, the truth is my superiors think I'm close to burnt out.
Are you?
I feel so helpless. I want to go on, but I'm not sure I can. You see, I miss those people out there. They're poor, simple, beautiful people. They get to you.
What do you see in them?
Mother Teresa says she sees the face of God. Her eyes are better than mine.
Do you wish you could believe?
Oh, how I wish I could believe. I'd give anything. A nun friend of mine said faith is a gift. Well, I haven't been given that gift, and I don't know why.
Neither do I, Dr. Carlin. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Quinlan, how do you feel about the society in which you live?
I don't think very much of it. With a wife in a mental institution and a daughter on New York's Minnesota Strip, I've seen too much of it.
Would you mind telling us about your daughter?
What's to tell? 2 years ago, Karen was a sweet, innocent child. Today, she's a prostitute on 8th Avenue, selling herself for $20 a half hour.
Have you tried to bring her home?
Of course.
And?
She refuses.
Why?
That I can't tell you. She seems to hate her mother and me now. She doesn't talk to us anymore. She has a pimp. She does what he tells her to do now.
Do you have any idea why this happened?
No, I don't.
Mr. Quinlan, do you consider yourself to be a religious man?
Not at all.
Were you ever a religious man?
Yes. Before this happened, Barry.
What caused you to change?
Well, it seems to me that if God is anything, he's just and loving. Well, what happened to me and to my family was neither just nor loving. I just can't quite bring myself to believe in him anymore.
You hold him personally responsible for what's happened?
Totally.
Thank you, Mr. Quinlan. Your witness, counselor.
Well, you've been through quite a bit, Mr. Quinlan.
Yes, I have.
How old was Karen when she ran away?
15.
Did anything peculiar happen that year, Mr. Quinlan, that might have made her unhappy?
No, not at all.
Well, was there any particular boy who might have been important to her?
Was one.
And what was his name?
Peter Bledsoe.
How did you feel about your daughter spending time with him?
I wasn't too happy about it.
Would you tell us why?
No particular reason.
Come on, Mr. Quinlan, you're being unresponsive. Answer the question.
I told you there was no reason. Certainly wasn't because he was...
Wasn't because he was what, Mr. Quinlan?
All right, if you must know. Look, I have nothing against people of color.
Oh, what color was Peter Bledsoe?
He's black. And I just didn't want Karen seen running all over town with him. People aren't ready for that here. They were starting to talk.
So what did you do about it, Mr. Quinlan?
What could I do? Sat her down. I tried to explain to her how things were in the real world.
And?
She wouldn't listen. She got angry. We quarreled. We never quarreled before that.
And how did this quarrel end up?
I told her it had to stop. I forbid her to see him again.
And what was her response?
She ran out of the house, crying. That was Saturday afternoon. She came home 3 o'clock Sunday morning. I guess that's when it happened.
When what happened?
She got pregnant.
Karen got pregnant.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I took her to Jeffersonville where nobody knew us. That's where she had the abortion. Nobody ever knew. Not even her mother.
Is this what Karen wanted?
No, it wasn't. Took me 2 days to talk her into it. Somebody had to do something. I didn't know what else to do. 3 weeks later, she ran away from home.
Do you feel any personal responsibility for what's happened to Karen?
Well, my wife blames herself. That's what brought on her nervous breakdown. I can't let myself feel that way. I have to be strong.
Oh, so you blame her pimp and the people who patronize the Minnesota Strip?
Yes, I do. I would like to strangle them with my...
And you also blame God?
Him most of all.
Why is that?
Because he shafted us. We didn't do anything to deserve this.
You feel no guilt yourself?
No. No, I don't.
Thank you, Mr. Quinlan. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down, Mr. Quinlan.
The prosecution rests, Your Honor.
Mr. Braddock, you may proceed with the case for the defense.
Now, you created the entire universe, the stars, the planets, Earth, plants, animals, people, everything, did you not?
I did, yes.
Must you not then assume complete responsibility for everything that happens here, the good and the bad?
This is a very complex question, and I'm going to have to give it a yes and a no answer.
Well, how yes and how no?
Yes, because both good and bad flow from the will of people, from their freedom. Now, inasmuch as I made people free, inasmuch as I work within them to enhance that freedom, to that degree, I'm responsible for what flows from it.
And how no?
I did not create a race of robots, you know? I created a race of human beings. They can think for themselves, choose for themselves, and in a very real sense, the good or the bad that they do is their own because they freely create it. No one else is responsible for it.
Didn't you take a terrible risk when you made people free?
I decided to live dangerously.
Would you mind telling us why you did it?
No, not at all.
You see, I enjoy living. I always have. I enjoy knowing, I enjoy loving, so much so that I decided that I wanted to share my joy. That's why I created people. I wanted to share my joy with them. Now, as you know, there is only one way to get joy, and that's by loving. And as you also know, love must be free, or it is not love at all.
Are you saying then that you made people free so that they could love and thereby share in your joy?
That's right.
Well, conversely, could we also say that evil comes about when people misuse their freedom, when they use it not to love other people, but to degrade and exploit them?
That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Your witness, Miss Durbin?
I can tell, sir, that you're a warm and sensitive human being. Would you mind telling the court how you feel about the plaintiffs in today's case?
They're very beautiful.
You say that despite the resentment they obviously feel for you.
Of course. In their shoes, I would probably feel the same way.
When you look at their pain and suffering, what do you feel?
I feel a great pain in my heart.
Do you feel any guilt?
No. No, I don't feel any guilt. Do you think that I should feel guilt?
I should think so. See, I can understand you're being hurt and angry at the way the world turned out. But I can't understand your lashing out blindly, arbitrarily punishing innocent people.
I punish no one.
You cause them to suffer.
I allow it. I do not cause it.
You're playing with words. The fact is you could have prevented it.
Yes, but in doing so, I would have to withdraw freedom, and I will not do that. You eliminate freedom, and you eliminate joy, growth, love, and all those wonderful surprises of which human beings are capable.
How does it feel to play crap with human lives, huh? You get your jollies, and we get it in the neck.
Suffering is suffering. It's no fun. I know quite a bit about that. But it is also temporary. And for those who know how to use it, it can deepen and strengthen. Suffering, it's like garbage. It doesn't smell good, it doesn't look good, but it makes excellent fertilizer. And it can sure help people to grow.
Please spare us. We've heard it all before. God writes straight with crooked lines. He draws good from evil. If you were as smart as I am, you'd understand, but you're not, so grin and bear it. Words, 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 having nothing to do with reality. The fact is, innocent people are being hurt. They're being killed, and you're not doing a damn thing to prevent it.
That's not true. I work within people, helping them to love.
How inspiring. What a total failure you are. In your shoes, I'd be thinking of suicide.
But you are not in my shoes. Did it ever occur to you that suffering gives all those who do not want to believe in me an excellent excuse not to do so?
That is off the point. The point is, innocent people are being hurt, degraded, killed by the selfishness of other people. I find that unacceptable.
I do too.
Well, then what are you doing about it?
I'm talking to you, aren't I?
What does that mean?
There's a lot you could be doing, Kay.
They're not my responsibility.
Then whose?
Yours. The governments, the welfare agencies, churches.
Ah, yes. Let George do it, let God do it. It's so easy to shift the burden.
You seem to have forgotten. You're on trial here, not me.
I know. And I intend to make it up to those children.
Oh, you expect us to accept that, huh? There's no justice now, but there will be. In that great heavenly payoff, in that big blue gas station in the sky. I'm sorry. I can't accept that. I find your answers insulting to my intelligence. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Does the defense have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Would the prosecution like to address the jury?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm sure you'll agree with me that the defendant in today's case is an attractive fellow. He's bright. He presents his case very well. All his talk of love, and joy, and freedom, it's very appealing. There's just one problem. It's a lie. You judge a tree by its fruit. You judge an artist by what he creates. A depraved, cruel, and inhuman world presupposes a depraved, cruel, and inhuman God behind it. It pains me to say these things. I also would like to believe in love, in joy, in happiness. But I have too much intelligence for that. And so do you. In conscience, there's only one way you can find. The defendant is guilty as charged. Thank you.
Will the defense like to address the jury?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we wrestle today with the mystery of human freedom. Now, as we've seen in the testimony today, human beings have the power to love or to hate, to inflict pain or to heal it. We can allow it to embitter us, or we can use it to grow. The decision is ours, no one else's. The truth is, human suffering is a human problem. Most of it can be prevented by human beings. And where it already exists, most of it can be remedied by human beings. It's so easy when we abuse our freedom and inflict suffering on other people to project our self-hatred onto God and say it's all His fault. But that's a cop-out. The only honest thing to do is to open ourselves to God's love, to do our best to share it with our fellow human beings. This is the challenge which faces each of us. You can begin by finding the defendant not guilty. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is now in your hands. Your responsibility is a heavy one. The defendant's life is at stake. Know that I and the people of this state have every confidence in you, and we will await your verdict. Has the jury reached a verdict?
No, Your Honor. We're hopelessly split. I see absolutely no possibility at arriving at a unanimous verdict.
You want to press charges?
No. No, it's all right. It's all right. I know what they're going through.
It's you at last.
I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry.